Welcome, FOH, to this week's deep dive with my mate Nick Hammond. Nick Hammond, who we caught up, author, raconteur. I caught up in Dortmund, and he gave me this great book that he's just wrote or just published, Around the World in 80 Cigars, There and Back Again, which is the follow-up to the original book, same title, except Travels of an Epicure. You know what I love about this book is I have Nick. Welcome aboard, by the way. But I talk a lot.
Morning, Rob.
I've been caught up in the world of audio books for such a long period of time. And now I think I'm a podcast guy. I listen to audio books, but you gave me this book in Dortmund, and I read it between Dubai and Brisbane.
Brilliant.
And it was such a pleasure to turn pages again. I don't know what it is. It's just turning pages in a book. And I've forgotten the simple joy of just turning a page. Congratulations. What a great read.
Thank you, mate.
Fantastic read. I'm going to start off by asking you, where did you grow up? Which part of England?
Thanks, Rob. Lovely to be with you.
Assuming it was England.
I am in England. Yeah, I was born in Aylesbury, which is in North Buckinghamshire, so about 50 miles north of London. And I now live maybe 30-40 minutes from Aylesbury, so I haven't gone very far. I'm right on the border of North Bucks and South Northant, so literally the next village is in the next county. And I've always been, I'm 50, so 50 odd years ago, it was a very rural place. And over the years, it's grown up and up and up, and there's, been a lot more houses built and stuff. But I still live in a village. I still love my country life. I fish and I shoot, and I love wildlife. And
You went to school there? You went to school there?
Yeah. I went to school in and around the area. I actually went to school right next to a very posh private school called Stowe School. It's where like Richard Branson went and various famous people over the years. I didn't go to that school. I went to the one next door. So so I haven't gone very far, but as I say, I'm very much a sort of stickler for the countryside. I love coming to town and London and seeing the craziness and being part of it for a few days. But I really love coming out and having a bit of greenery around and a bit of air to breathe. And I need that,
Yeah, so do I. You mentioned fishing. Because it's something where, fishing and shooting on FOH is huge amongst their members. Oh, absolutely. They love it. We can't discuss guns because we have such a US-centric
no way.
And they get out. Oh, we do. I'd say we've got 26,000 members, of which a good 65% would be from the US in terms of membership there. And guns can be a little bit of a touchy subject. I love guns. I love shooting. I love fishing. You're a fly fisherman?
Yeah, I do a bit of everything. I mean, I don't go, regularly, but when I go, I love it. I do a little bit of fly fishing. I've been lucky enough to fly fish in Scotland and in Ireland, and sometimes I just go and sit near the local canal and drop a float in and catch a little perch. There's nothing like.
But there's something about fishing and cigars. I don't know what it is. Fishing and cigars must be one of the most calming pastimes in the world.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah, but I love fly fishing. I've been lucky enough to fly fish in Australia. Obviously, we fly fish for tuna here locally, and we do that. I fly fished in the Amazon. I fly fished in Patagonia. We fly fished around the world.
Awesome.
And often on the way to Cuba. So
Cuba's amazing, isn't it?
Cuba, I've done Zapata, bone fishing in Zapata. I've done that. It's so cool. But if you ever find yourself this way in Brisbane, I'd love to take you between May and July, a little bit of August. Yeah, fly fishing for tuna on Lake Gear is super cool. Super cool. Anyway, where were we? Yes, you grew up in the countryside. And so, did you go to college, or did you just go straight into the workforce?
Well, I was a bit of a tearaway, not in a bad way, but in a sort of Tom Sawyerish sort of a way, because I never really liked school. Um, in fact, I hated it. I hated being told what to do, which of course teachers didn't like very much. But I wasn't a bad kid. I was cheeky. I was the class clown on it, but I never really gave it my all. And I got the typical Nick could do so much better if he stopped looking out of the window at the birds or whatever. Um, so the only thing I was ever very good at, and which really caught my passion, was English. And I had an amazing teacher from about 14 to 16, and he really got me and helped me, and we became like pals, and he got me into Shakespeare, and I really took off then with my English. And it was noticeably, the best thing I could do, but noticeably, I had a skill above and beyond the other kids in the school. So that
Yeah,
really made me feel good about myself, which I'd never really had before. I was okay at the other subjects, but nothing outstanding, and I didn't really enjoy them. But this really got me. So um, I did my GCSEs, and my mum and dad said, "You've got to do your A levels." And I said, "I don't want to do my A levels. I wanted to become a gamekeeper or a bloody fisherman or something." And they said, "You can't make a living out of that. You've got to do your A levels." So I don't know if you know, but in the UK, if you now have to do your A levels, I think, or at least do something till you're 18. But A levels are the next thing after your exams at 16. You then go on to harder exams for another 2 years.
yeah,
So they made me go and do these A levels, and I went to a big lads school in Aylesbury, much 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 bigger than any school I'd been to before. I think there were 1,000 of us in the sixth form, and I just thought, fucking hell, this is amazing. And I learned how to smoke, and I learned how to bunk off school, and have a great time with my mates. But I did completely fail the A levels, and my mum and dad were really pissed off. So then I sort of bummed about for a little while, and I got a job in the local pub, and I ended up becoming the assistant manager, and I lived in the pub for about a year. And that was, again, fantastic fun for a young guy, but not the sort of thing you want to do for very long, to be
no,
perfectly honest.
no,
Incredibly hard work, and hardly ate anything, just drank for a living. And then I sort of realized, even in my youthful naivety, that this probably wasn't a long-term solution. So I started to look around, and I don't know what made me do it, whether my dad suggested it, but I went and had a chat with the editor of the local newspaper in the town, little market town nearby. And it had a weekly paper and had done for 150 years, and it came out on a Tuesday, which was the market day. And that used to be a big thing in the day. They would drive all the cattle in, and there'd be a big
yeah,
cattle market. Well, of course, it wasn't quite like that anymore, but it was still, Tuesday was the town's big day. And I went and did some work experience for them in their newsroom, and made the tea, and generally made myself indispensable. And during one summer, I think I worked there, full time for a few months. And, like you do, if you've got a bit of something about you and you're really keen, you make people think, bloody hell, he's good. And they sent me out and taught me the basics of, what, where, when, why, when you were writing an article, and who, and I sort of learnt the trade from the ground up. And when a job came along, they needed a junior. I was the obvious candidate, and that was sort of right at the end of when print journalism was really changing. I was probably one of the last to be sort of properly trained. I went off to college.
traditional.
Yeah, went off
Yeah,
to college in Yorkshire, where they taught me shorthand and law and crime and public affairs, and we had to do exams and all of that stuff. And I had a great time up there, being paid at the same time. And then I came back and was, dived into the world of being a newspaper reporter. I loved it.
I was going to ask you, is that paper still going today?
It is going. The newsroom is closed in the town, and it's run by
Yeah,
like one person in some centralized place somewhere. Really sad.
I love that old school, yeah. That old school where you actually did. Like when I started banking, I was my first job in banking in corporate banking, even though corporate banking, my first job in corporate banking as the junior was to change the bath fridge for the general manager every day
No
to top up
way.
the bath fridge. That was my first job, just to top up the bath fridge. And
Really?
you hang around long enough, and then I became a penciler, and then they put me through, and you actually started talking to clients, etc. There, but that's how you started. You
Yeah.
actually started from the ground up. Like, I love those days because I assume the newspaper was the same. Well, I'm a bit older than you. I'm 9 years older than you are. You're 50, yeah? I'm 59.
Right.
But everyone used to smoke in the office.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the place was just a plume of smoke, which was
Revolting.
it was revolting. I wouldn't want to go back to that. But
Oh.
it was that, and Christmas parties. I remember Christmas parties were out of control.
Oh,
Uh,
outrageous.
it was,
Well, we
and,
used to
and
have the Tuesday market day was the day the paper came out. And it was known as Tiddly Tuesday because the paper had come out. So every Tuesday we'd go up the pub at lunchtime and get absolutely pissed.
never come back.
And we
No,
came back maybe at 4 o'clock and like fell asleep at your desk and then drove home.
that was it. And
Outrageous.
you've got two daughters, yeah, if I remember
Yes.
correctly.
Yeah.
You got two daughters. So how old are they now? They must
19
be.
and 17.
If you told them these stories, they don't believe you.
They just look at you like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah, they don't believe. My kids don't believe.
No, it's you
But that
can't make it up, can you? Like I said, we used to smoke on the bus on the way to school.
yeah, yeah, they, they don't believe you. So you got into journalism,
Yeah,
and you you never find stride first up. It's almost impossible to find stride
yeah.
first up. You find your shtick. When did you find your shtick? When did you realize that you could like you're a great writer? I mean, I've read your books. The way you write is look, I'm there, and I think that's a skill in itself. That's it's two people. There's you and a good mate of mine, Kenny Gargett, who's a lawyer, who's also a writer. But
Right.
he can go across the road and get a carton of milk and come back and write a 3-page essay on that whole experience. And
Yeah,
from the butterflies that he saw to the birds that came down to the interaction there, and you have that same skill set. It just brings you in
yeah.
to the everyday life. When did you know you had that?
Do you know that's really well? Thank you for your kind words. That is my skill. I think is bringing you with me. So many people say that I just feel like I was there, right there with you, and I could
Yeah,
see it and feel it. Do you know what? I don't think I ever really understood it till really quite recently because partly because as a writer, I went off, did various things. I ended up working for a bank as their head of copywriting. It was really boring, and I was made redundant in 2005. And I said to myself, "Fuck that! I'm never doing that again." It was a terrible job. I had to go to work with like 2,000 other people, like bees into a hive, and it was so not me. And I said, I'm going to do things I enjoy. So what can I do? And I started to write about fishing and shooting and cigars and food and drink and travel and all the things that I love. And that was around the time when I started to really become more involved in the cigar scene. And then, of course, you write for other people, for magazines and for other
yeah,
voices. And they have their own style and they want you to write about this, that, and the other. And when you start, you're a bit formulaic, I guess. You've seen what others have done, so you think that's how it should be done. And it wasn't for a long time that I wrote for myself. And I realized, I think I did at one point think, this is all well and good. Another lovely article in a magazine, and it might be for, really well-known magazine somewhere in the world. But I thought, but people are going to either look at it, think that was nice and go to the next story, or not bother reading it because it's not their thing. How can that help me in the long run? It's just, forever peddling for the next article that pays you a few quid.
yeah,
And I thought somehow, you need to be I like to read things. And if I read something really like I don't know, sports piece or whatever, And I think, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, or I really enjoyed it. I look back and see who wrote it, and his name sticks in. And the next time, if I read something, I think that, and I look out for this guy, and after a while, you get to know the people that you like to read. And I thought I need to be that person, you know, where someone goes, that was really good. Who was that? And so that was when I started to interject a bit of personality into those articles in a way that wouldn't piss the sub-editors off. You know, hey, it's not about you, it's
Yeah.
about us. So I just used to slip the odd little bit of personality into it, you know, and refer to myself, which, you know, you have to do carefully, but you can say, you know, the chap that I bumped into on the way to the cheese factory was happened to be wearing a top hat or something, you know, and you're not really talking about yourself, but you've put yourself in there.
But you painted a picture. Yeah.
And then you've put yourself there rather than it's just this thing that they read that is fairly sort of dehumanized. And so I did that for a while, and I realized that that was, and I started to get noticed a bit more in a way that I wanted to. But the first time I really was able to be me was when I started to write book one. Because up to then, I'd always written for everybody else. You never write for yourself. You know, it's like if you're a bloody builder, the last thing you want to do when you go home is knock up a shed or whatever, you know. So I would not write for pleasure because, you know, I did it all day, every day. And I was thinking, you know, what can you do? A, that you enjoy, you know, life's pretty short. What can you do that's going to be something that you just think is amazing and it gets you off around the world and you meet people and you can pay the bills and you have a great life? What can you do? And I just thought, pretty much,
I love that checklist. It's a really good checklist, people.
yeah.
What can I do that's I'm going to thoroughly enjoy, that's going to make me some money and I can travel the world? Yeah, perfect.
And then
Tick.
it sounds really trite, but I did think to myself, you know, if you could do anything, what would you do? You know, for you, sod everything else. What would you do? You know, bearing in mind the practicalities of, you know, you do have a family and whatever, but ignore all the shit that we have to deal with. What would you really want to do? And I thought, you know what I'd really love to do? I'd love to go around the world and smoke cigars. I really did
Now,
think,
were you in the? I mean, you were writing for Cigar Journal at that stage, and I think you were writing for Cigar Aficionado at that stage
yeah,
on occasion, etc. There, so you've actually got some articles in, and you got a little bit of, you got your leg in the door, you got your foot in the door, I should say.
yeah, yeah,
You got your foot in the door, and you're making a quid writing, and you thought, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write a book. What was the commentary around you at that time? What the hell are you doing this for? Or
well, exactly right, exactly that,
yeah,
Rob. Loads of people. So you know, I thought, what can I do that other people can't do? Is there something I can do that would be different? Because I did see books, you know, but they're all exactly the same. And
mm,
many of them are excellent, don't get me wrong, you know, they're great books, but they're all exactly the same. They're either a really nice glossy coffee table book with big pictures and a few words, normally fairly mundane words, but set the scene, or they're a very in-depth, well-written, but fairly geeky sort of
technical,
technical
technical.
book, a reference
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
And I thought nobody's written about cigars in a way that really gets me going. You know, the whole point for me is I love it and I love what it makes me think about and I love where it takes me and I love who it gets me to meet. That to me is what cigars is all about. Not it's the fact it's got a candela leaf or, you know, it's grown in Ometepe or Pina del Rio or wherever. You know, that's interesting. But really, is that really why you smoke cigars? No. It's because it makes you feel good. You enjoy the flavors and it takes you into this incredible world that you and I find ourselves a part of. So that's what I wanted to write about. And I made a big mistake in that I said to a couple of people, very well regarded people in the business, I'm going to write a book. And I allowed myself to be totally put off because they said, why the fuck are you
Yeah.
doing that? What? Why? There's loads of books. Just another cigar book. Why would you bother? And I allowed myself for years to think, oh shit, maybe they're right. So that I sort of shelved it. And then the longer it went on, the more I thought well, that you know, it is all just the same stuff. The magazines write pretty much the same sort of stuff. You know, where is the innovation? Where's the fun? Where's the silliness? I mean, you know me, I love stupid humor. You know, I love this world that we're part of because you're never far away from your next laugh, right? And that to me is how I love to be. You know, I've got a daft sense of humor, and if you set me laughing, you know, that's it. I can giggle with the best of them. So I always
But
look for
it's
this.
true. But Nick, it's true. I mean, if you think back through your cigar years or my cigar years, it's just a story after story
Yeah,
of remarkable places and remarkable people,
exactly.
and the shit we get into and the shit we get out of during the course of those years. And it is a remarkable. Not gonna say industry. There is an industry part. It's a remarkable hobby
Yeah,
that traverses both industry and people who just smoke cigars for the love of smoking cigars. But I don't think there's another hobby industry like this. Wine's not like it. Whiskey's not
no,
like it. This is quite unique in terms of the experiences that you have. Um, I love the fact that I think you're one of the first people in New World cigars, not in terms of distributing or anything like that, because I don't think you've ever sold a cigar in your life, have you?
no.
But you've always been you had a great book. Was it Hoy the Nicaragua? Yeah, that
Yes.
you wrote, and
It-
I remember reading through that. Was it a year ago? And stunned. I mean, you actually when you dove in deep. So you did your first book. You were told not to do your first book. I cut you out here. You were told not to do your first book. You went back and you decided that no, bugger it, I'm going to do it.
yeah. And so I started to sit down, and you know, the hardest part of anything is actually starting it and doing it, you know.
Mm.
It's like I always say to people now, they say, how do you write a book? You know, and I say it's like when you know, I guess if you try and climb a bloody mountain, you know, if you stand and look at the bottom and look up at it, you think, fuck that. Right? But if you get a little way up, you think, all right. And if you keep going, eventually it's easier to go up than it is to go down. And it's, you know, in technical terms, it's as simple as that. You just got to keep going. So I started and I made myself laugh, which, you know, remembering these stories, like you just said, you know, you and I could, do you remember when we were in Cuba and we put bloody Nakasan in the boat and pushed him out across I mean, you know, stuff that would have us in fits.
Yeah.
And then there's thousands of them. And I realized I had this great well of stuff and the ability to tell a story that was entertaining to other people. So I thought, yeah, maybe this has got some legs. And I started to write it, and it just came like, you know, I didn't take it apart and put it back together. I wrote it from start to finish. And I really liked it. And I said to my missus, I said, you know I would say this, but I think it's bloody good. And I was reading the audio book of the new book. We're doing it chapter by chapter, getting it done so people can listen to it from wherever. And I have to stop because it still makes me laugh. And you know, you shouldn't laugh at your own jokes, but it's the remembering of
We do. Yes, we do.
it.
Yes, we do.
So that was the first time I'd really written for myself, and it was, you know, amazingly emancipating. You know, the ability to actually be me and take people with me. And then, of course, when that was received and went down well, and I started to get a bit more acknowledgement or whatever, awareness of me and my profile, you know, that was very good for the self-confidence. And I realized that I did have something that would be useful. And then it dawned on me, well, listen, once you can, as you said at the start, once you can go across the road, buy a pint of milk and come back and make that interesting, then you know, you've got a job for life. The world's your oyster. I can go off and do stupid things, and as long as I don't get, you know, greedy or you know, lazy and don't do it properly, people are going to want to read it, and I can have my great
Yeah,
life going around the world smoking cigars and giving people something that they really enjoy and get pleasure out of. So that's pretty much where it all
yeah.
came
No,
together.
So basically, you've achieved your goals and you're making your own content on a continuous basis, which is perfect.
Yeah,
No, love it, love it. What's your writing regime? I mean, regimen, I should say. Do you smoke when you write? Do
yeah.
you? Yeah.
I'm a
You're a
great
morning writer, nighttime writer.
well, so you mentioned the Hoyer book, Cinco Decades, for their 50th anniversary. That was another big thing that really pushed me personally because it was a huge responsibility that Juan and his dad asked me to do this book to celebrate the fact that the oldest factory in Nicaragua was 50 years old. And them being them, it wasn't just a big, this is how great we are. They said, we want to write a book that speaks about the country and about its people and why we are such an amazing people and the people that work for us, because that's why we are where we are today. So I went over there and they took me over for some weeks and we traveled up and down the country. I interviewed politicians and poets and like the mayor of Esteli and loads of people. They wanted me to really understand. And of course, Nicaragua is a very volatile, interesting, emotional, difficult history. And I spoke to people on both sides of that because they were very keen. It was going to get both sides of the picture. It wasn't going to be a sort of hagiography. And that was a real sort of, funny enough, deep dive to learn about that country and about those people and the people I spoke to that work in that factory, some of whom have been there 50, 60 years. I mean, it's unbelievable. And so that really sort of, again, when that came out, that took me on another leap up the ladder because back then, as you said, loads of people were very Cuba-centric. I was one of the first people in the UK to think, actually, this might change. And I wouldn't claim any sort of genius for that, but it was just obvious to me. In the US, it was huge, and there were all these podcasts, and I would listen to pods with Jonathan Drew and Pete Johnston and all these, rock stars. And I thought it's only a matter of time before it comes over here. So I stole a bit of a march there and got, I was friendly with all these people by the time it started to get big over here. So in terms of as a writer, I then, had a young family. So it always is sort of do it when you can, if my wife works as well. She's in the pharmaceutical industry. And in fact, during some of the early years, thank God she was, because it kept us going, and so I would be looking after little kids, taking them to play school, cooking their dinner, having an hour to try and run in and write something, or probably falling asleep because I was so knackered. And it's sort of gone on like that, and things get different, as you know, some not necessarily easier. Now the girls are older. My eldest has gone to uni and the youngest is doing her A levels. So my wife's working away this week, so I'm at home. I'm walking the dog, taking the kid to school, coming back, trying to crash out some work, walking the dog again, going to pick the kid up from school, doing dinner, taking her to club. So it's trying to be all things to all people. And that's kind of how I work. I generally work in the day if I can. I do evening events, of course. And during COVID and stuff, we did a million online events and I would be hosting and that sort of thing. And I love to sit down with a coffee, with a cigar, and then it all comes out. But I'm a great prevaricator. So, like, I think most writers are. If I have to have a deadline, otherwise it just goes on and on and on and on. But if you say to me, Nick, I need this next Tuesday morning, and it gets to Friday, and I go, shit, I've got to do it. And then it will get done. What I've learned over the years is, and people find this very strange. In fact, the Hoyer book was a good example. I would go to all these places and people. If I was interviewing you, I would make shorthand notes of answers and things I thought were relevant. But when I was going around seeing things and talking about things and taking it in, I don't tend to make that many notes. And I think some of the team there found that quite disconcerting. And apparently they fed back to Juan Martinez, said, look, this English guy, he never writes anything down. You know, I don't see how he's going to do it. And so I find that quite funny because over the years I've learned now that I tend to soak it up. I'll make a few notes. Sometimes when I'm walking around, like even the first chapter, paragraph, or whatever will come to me, and then it all flows from that. But other than that, I go away and it has to percolate for a while and do whatever it needs to do. And then I used to try and force it, and when you can't, when the time's not right, the time's not right. You might as well go and dig the garden, you know? And so I've got a bit better at saying, all right, I'll do some admin, I'll go to the gym, I'll walk the dog, and then one day
Bang.
it's there. And up to now, you know, once you get in that place, it comes very, very easily.
No, that makes sense. I think we have a fair few writers on FOH, and they all have different styles.
Yeah,
Some are very regimented, where they 9 o'clock till 12 o'clock every day, whether it be
really.
morning or evening, and they do the 3 hours. And others like Ken, it is just whenever they fit it in and it fits right, and things come and they go and
And it's
just
the
works.
weird thing is, Rob, like if you're trying to write 1,000 words and it's not quite there and you're not quite sure and you're not in the right place, you can make such a drama out of writing 1,000 words. You can stretch it over days. But if I sit down that time when it's right, I'll knock 1,000 words out in an hour and a half or something.
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
don't seem to be someone who gets too stressed. Do you get
no,
stressed about it?
no, I don't really. I'm quite a laid back person. I'm quite a. I think I had this discussion recently because my youngest daughter has been diagnosed having ADHD or a variety of it. And we finally got to the bottom of, you know, why she had some issues with certain things. And I think probably if we'd back in the day, if we'd have had a better understanding of people and their traits, I would be on the spectrum somewhere
Yeah.
because my brain works in a very different way, I think, to most people. Um, and I tend to, you know, observe and I notice things that maybe other people don't. And I will spot something that looks quite normal or incongruous to you, but and I'll be able to make something out of that, which leads me off in some bizarre path. That's, you know, the skill of the writer, but that also is quite an odd thing to do. So I think I'm quite a sensitive sort of person. I can get a bit down and on myself, you know,
Yeah.
and and I think all creative people have a bit of that in them, don't they? I'm very bad at you know, self promotion. I'm really only interested in doing the job and doing it well and giving people pleasure. I'm not really very good at selling and promoting and giving it the big look at me, you know. um, but I don't get stressed as a general rule, no.
No, no, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. So you wrote your first book. How nervous were you after you finished it? Were you nervous?
Yeah, well, you know, it's a strange thing because you have to tell people you're writing this book. You've told your kids, your wife, you've spent such a long time doing it, not to mention money. You really stick your neck out. And there's that little bit on one shoulder going, why the hell do you think anyone is going to be interested in this? Who do you
Yeah,
think you are? You know, you're just some oik from England. Why would anyone buy your book? You know, there's that. And on the other side, you've got the bit that goes, no, come on, you've done some amazing things. Every time when you sit around the pub, someone mentions something. Normally, I have done something related to it somewhere down the
yeah,
line. And I can tell them a story. People used to say, that's amazing. How have you done all this stuff? So there's that, and then there's the fear of putting it out there and just waiting to see what happens. And I was, you know, you just think, well, here we go, you know, because if it doesn't work, you'd be so crushed, having put so much of yourself into it. I'm not sure where you'd go after that, but thank God, you know, people recognised it for being the, you know, the very different thing that it is, and
it was refreshing. It was super refreshing
yeah.
in terms of the way it was written, the laughter you got from it, the storytelling was brilliant, and it's something that hasn't been done before in our industry.
That was important
Uh,
to me because I thought if you're going to do something, you've got to do something add value. You know, what are you going to do that you can genuinely say is a reflective of you and your where you come from and your personality and what you want to put out, but also in what can you give value to the people that buy it. And so I thought the one thing you can do is be different, do something that's totally different to anything else that's out there. And that was the reason that we came up with the colors as well, because every cigar book, I used to go and look in the bookshop or look online, and they're nice brown tobacco colors, or maybe a dark
Yeah, yeah.
green or something. And I thought, no, come on, let's do something that if my wife walked into a shop and didn't know what to get me for Christmas, and she saw that, she would look, oh, that looks amazing. And it's about cigars. He loves cigars. Perfect. I'll buy him. And that was one of the things I wanted to attract ladies and people who, if you got those two books on a shelf, there won't be anything else like them.
No.
And that was important as well. So I wanted it to be completely different. So for you to
But
say that
I don't even think you need to enjoy cigars to actually buy the book.
no.
You know, Dee's going to read it after. Well, she's going to read it next week when she goes away. But I don't think I said to Dee, you don't need to love cigars.
No.
You
I've
don't need
had
to smoke
I've had
cigars.
lovely comments from people who said, like, a lady said, my husband's always banging on about you. He's listened to your podcast, watched your video. He loves your books. He was laughing so much. He said to me, you've got to read this. She emailed me and she said, I'm going to read it when he's finished. And I thought, how great is that? She's got no
Yeah, it is.
interest in cigars.
Sure.
Yeah.
So your first album's a success.
Yeah.
You're breathing deep. Pats on the back. You're walking around the world, and people are coming up to you. Like, love your book, love your book, love your book. Brilliant. But you got to come up with a second album. Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to
That's
come up with your
exactly,
second. You got
exactly
to come up
the,
with your second. How much pressure was on that one?
you're exactly right. That's exactly the expression I use to describe it. The tricky second album, because
Yeah,
the first one, it spanned about 25 years of larking about. And then you think, well, now what? I've got to recreate that. And like, you poured everything into it and it was your baby and great and everyone loves it. But how on earth do I then do that again? But when I sat down and sort of took the fear away from it, there's millions of stories. Like we said earlier, there's always
yeah.
something. And like every day someone reminds me, do you remember when we, and I went, oh my God, yeah, I ought to write that down. That could be another chapter. So I started to think about them. And then, of course, because I've had this sort of fillip of being, reasonably successful, then it makes it easier, actually. Because then you feel like somebody wants to read it. And then, it gives you that boost. And people have said to me, I've read this one and you feel more confident in this book. It just comes across more naturally. Of course, the other fear is, the devil on your shoulder says, you've run out of things to say. This one won't be as good as the first one. But
we all have that inbuilt saboteur.
absolutely.
You just got to ignore the bastard
Yeah,
as often as you can.
exactly right.
It's just a case of doing
You'd
so.
never
I
do
love
anything, would you, if you
no,
listen to them?
no, no. You just become stagnant.
Well,
And
when you and Rob were kicking off Bond
yeah,
Roberts,
yeah.
and you remember we met in Cuba, you were talking about it and everything. I mean, that to go from talking about
It
that
was
would be
good.
a good
I love that
idea.
feedback. I think we got feedback from a whole heap of people in Cuba, and I think 100% of the feedback was great idea, but it won't work.
Yeah,
Great idea, but it won't work. Love the idea, it won't work. Won't work, won't work, won't work, won't work, and won't work. Always remember that. And we looked at the numbers in terms of the costings to put it forward. Looked at the resources that we had. And I'm very simple, Nick. I said, Rob, let's give it a crack. We can do it. Let's just give it a crack. If it falls over, it won't be my first business to fall over. I mean,
no,
I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I think I've started 12 businesses, Nick, of which, and like when you start 12 businesses, this is my record. 4 have been failures, 3 have been and the rest have been gunners.
Really?
And
That's a good record.
That's a good record. And the thing is, if you're going to fail cheaply,
Yes.
and so don't make it. You want to fail as cheap and as quick as possible, and then move on and to the new one. So we didn't have anything really to lose. We had the experience, we had the resources. Let's give it a crack, and it worked. And from there, other things have spawned. So no, it's and not only that. For me, it's not necessarily the success of the business. It's the enrichment of the relationships that you have. Robbie Fox and I are super close, and Stuart Fox and those guys there, and now Hamlet, and then you move from Andy Rye and now Alex Groom, and everyone's involved in that process to get to know their families, to spend time in their countries, to spend time in their homes, to go on adventures that you never expected, to go fishing together or to go to Shanghai together and spend a weekend with Ravi in Hong Kong and Dortmund and Limassol. None of that would have happened unless you start that process. And it just enriches your life.
When you look at it like that, that's what I mean. You were sitting at the table talking about it in your sort of first meetings, kicking it around. Everyone can talk about a good idea. The hard bit is doing something, and especially when they're told it's not going to work. But when you think back to now, I mean, I think back to, I can't believe that, personal friends are some of the biggest cigar makers in the world, and they ring me up or text me, and I'd have been like a bloody running around the house screaming, You couldn't make it up, could you?
No, you can't. I mean, I remember when it must be the late 90s when Simon Chase came and sought me out of the National Hotel in Cuba.
Really?
And I could barely talk. Simon Chase. I could barely talk. I thought, well, yes, thank you, Mr. Chase. Call me Simon. And would you like to have a cigar? I love what you're doing on YouTube and stuff like that. And I said, really? Really? Because we're just getting smashed and smoking cigars and calling it as it is.
Yeah.
But I always remember he said to me, "You're doing stuff that we cannot do."
Exactly.
And I said, "Really?" But I was just in awe. I was just in awe of these. And over the years, you meet all the great families and all the great personalities, and I don't know when it dawns on you, they're just normal people.
Of course they are.
They're just normal people.
Most of
them.
So
you get most of them. That's true. Good point. But you grow into your own skin through experience.
Exactly.
Through experiences. And so I'm a huge believer in throwing the dice, but calculating the risk, but throwing the dice. And if it's an evens, run it. But again, if you're going to fail quickly and fail cheaply.
Well, what I think is important, and for me, and I suspect for you and most people, is also that you do what you do by being yourself. I think that's the biggest thing, because you, as you say, you grow into your own skin. You don't need to pretend to be something, or before you even get to the hard bit of running a business, you don't have to pretend to be this figure. You are who you say you are. I am who I say I am. And if you meet me up the road or you meet me in the National, I'll be exactly the same person. And that is actually a great relief, isn't it? I find.
I love it. I mean, we get a lot of visitors into this town from around the world, and they say, well, you're just like you are on YouTube or
why wouldn't I be?
Yeah, it is. I'm going to scare you now. I'm going to take you over to Ken's place, and they go to Ken's place and they get completely horrified. And that's exactly what we portray.
Yeah.
I think that, and I hate that word authenticity because I think it's used so often now. But you've got to be real, because in the end, no matter whether you're at dinner or post dinner at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning, then you got a few drinks under your belt. Regardless, you've got to be who you are in a decent way. And I think there's so many decent people in this industry, in this hobby, and we both travel extensively, and it's, to me, like I just said, I came back from Limassol. I met Harris, Marius, and all the Cypriot community there, Walid from Phoenicia, Stelios, etc. My God, um, from for 5 days, it was Ravi, myself, Robbie Fox, from little bars and clubs to rocking restaurants to everything else. But the quality of the people is what you remember. It's the
Yeah,
experience and the laughter. It's the yeah, and I keep thinking, when I looked at that diary and I said, "Shall we go there?" Yes. Well, it's a short trip. Shall we not go? No, go. People go to these
yeah,
places. It makes
yeah,
a difference. Just being there, just make the effort, get there if you can,
absolutely.
and go with an open mind, an open heart, and a laugh,
Yeah.
and share a cigar. It's so good. But you've seen a lot of changes in the UK cigar world specifically, with the advent of New World cigars. Now it's been 5, 6, 7 years into that realm. I think COVID certainly, what happened with Habanos in terms of supply opened the doors. Tor, I know, I think you're good mates with Scott
Yeah.
and everything else there. Eh, eh, I always call it a sliding door moment. That door isn't going to change anytime soon, I would expect. It is going from strength to strength. Do you see, how do I phrase this question? How do you see that? How do you see the Habanos position in the UK and the world today in terms of cigars?
You're right. It's a really interesting time globally for everything about cigars, but particularly the UK is, I mean, it's been remarkable, really. The change. I thought it would change, but I thought it would be a very, very slow change. And actually, it's just crashed through. Um, 10 years ago, Scott was struggling to get cigars in any shops in London, let alone.
Yeah,
And now, I mean, it was like a, convergence of coincidence and a perfect storm, and COVID came, and then Habanos decided to put a hole in their boat, and it was just a very, very strange set of circumstances. My personal view is exactly that. I think that ship has sailed. I'm very nautical today. I don't know why. That ship has sailed. I think, now that market share has moved, I don't think it will move back. Um, I think Cuban cigars, if they can continue to be made in reasonable quantities and in reasonable quality, and those two aren't given, as you know, will always be
yeah,
popular. But the way it's looking is they'll be popular among people who are very, very rich. Um, and the rest of us will make do with what we can, because frankly, that's what you do. If you want a cigar, you want a cigar. And if you can't afford this one, you go for that one.
man, I've never seen you being one who actually pontificates upon flavors of a cigar when you
No,
do when you don't. You smoke cigars for the love of smoking a cigar for the company that brings.
yeah,
The way I see it, which is
yeah,
very much the same way I do. I can sit down with some great tasters of cigars, and I'm a decent taster of cigars, I've got a decent palate, but I'm in awe of those guys who can actually just tease it out
yeah,
and they're not bullshitting. So some guys bullshit, but these guys don't bullshit. I I respect you for the fact that I always say it on the forum: you smoke for the right reasons. You smoke cigars for the right reasons, and
yeah,
that's really about company and people and experiences. And I think that's what
absolutely.
most people do. That's what most people do.
I think
At
it's
the
important to, in anything you do, I sometimes, if I can remind myself, they say, living in the moment, or what do they call it these days? Can't think of the current term, but being in the present and being aware, and remembering that you shouldn't spend your life thinking about what you've got to do next and never noticing anything. If sometimes I get in the shower in the morning and it's a cold day and there's a lovely hot shower, and I think some clever bastard invented this, you
yeah,
know so I can have a nice hot shower in the morning, and we just take it for granted. And I always think of the, I always saying, I can't think where it came from, but standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think everything I do, you know, I'm so hopelessly not technical. So I get in a car and I can drive it. Don't ask me how it works or anything. But I'm standing on the shoulders of giants because some really clever people have made this thing. And the same applies to everything around us, you know, the luxuries and the things we take for granted. You know, there's the bit in the book where I go and live in the bush in Kenya for a while, and you get used to not having light at night, you know, and things like that are massive when you don't have it. And yet every day the kids leave the lights on, nobody thinks anything about it. That, you know, Mr. Watt, the Scotsman who invented the light bulb, you know, what bloody genius. He's a giant and we all stand on his shoulders. And so I always feel that, like you say about tasters and the real people who make cigars and the real people who know about cigars, we stand on the shoulders of those giants. So for me to then sit in front of a camera and pretend I know all there is to know about it and to pontificate about tastes and stuff would not be honest, you know?
But the whole industry's chock-a-block with cigar influences at this point in time.
Yeah.
And God bless them. I mean, I think cigars are a broad church, and there's room for everyone in that church.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm old school, so it doesn't resonate with me. But and I know these guys pretty well, and God bless them for it. I was going to ask you, someone who's not an influencer and who you get on exceptionally well with, obviously, you got a great relationship with him, is Lawrence.
Yeah.
Lawrence, how did you meet? I've always wanted to ask that question. How did you meet?
It's very interesting because we've become like, you know, the Tweedledee and Tweedledum of cigars. But I knew him and knew of him many, many years ago. But because I was very interested in becoming, you know, respected and trusted, which is huge in anything, but as you know, in the cigar industry, very, very important. Because if you know, you only need to get
in the UK specifically, can I say?
true, true.
Yeah.
And if you do get a bad reputation, there's no coming back from it. It's as simple as that. And that takes many, many years. So I was very keen on being, you know, doing what I said I would do, letting people know I was an honest guy, you know, things you should take for granted, but they're very wary about newcomers. And Lawrence was, you know, in terms of becoming in the industry, was a relative newcomer. He didn't buy the shop until I think 2010, 2012, something like that. But of course, he was a massive consumer before that. And loads of passion, loads of knowledge, but he appeared on the scene, and Lawrence being Lawrence, he's not the sort of chap to tiptoe into the room quietly and whisper to somebody in a corner and then make his way out. You know, he exploded onto the scene. And back then he was an even bigger guy than he is now. I mean, he's lost 11 stone, would you believe?
Bloody hell.
He was just, everything about him was larger than life. And so naturally, I sort of thought, blimey. And I took a step back and I just sort of circumnavigated Lawrence for a while, trying to figure him out. And then he remembers this because we've talked about it. One time we were invited by Davidoff to come to a restaurant in London to do like a panel of experts, for want of a better term, panel of people who know cigars. They wanted to talk about various things that they had going on and see what our thoughts were. Great. Yeah, lovely. And Lawrence was one of the people at the table. And I sat at one end, he sat at the other, and I said my piece, and then he stood up and said his, and everyone went, ooh. And I remember thinking, really? Do you really think that? And he said to me, Colin McNeil, I need to talk to you. And I thought, oh, shit. He said, listen. And this was shortly after poor Nick Wing had passed away. And he said, listen, Nick's gone. I need someone to help me with comms. Would you be interested? And I knew Nick as well. He was a lovely chap, as you know. And I thought, well, I don't want to, you know, jump straight in, you know, and make myself the next Nick Wing. That's not what I'm about. But anyway, I met with Lawrence. We had a long discussion. He had 1,000,001 ideas of things he wanted to do, probably 1,000,000 of which never happened. And that's how it started. And he said, I'm shooting videos on Wednesday, come along and we'd do some videos. And that was it. They thrust a camera in front of my face and he gave me a cigar and said, start smoking it. And that's how it started. And we've become very, very good mates, very different people. But as you know him, he's got the heart of a giant. He really has. And he's been very, very kind to me. And yeah, we get on like a house on fire, which is really odd because we're so different.
Ah, true. But he calls a spade a spade.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And which I really enjoy. I always remember when we did the Monte Cristo Open reviews with Kenny Gargett on our deck reviews. And that first batch of Monte Opens wasn't the best batch of Monte Opens.
Really?
It was awful. They were awful cigars. And I always remember Kenny looking. This is what Simon meant when he said, "You guys can say what we cannot." And so we did the review. We gave it a complete fail, and then Kenny Gargett looks down the camera and goes, "Shame, Habanos, shame."
Wow.
It's the first time I ever got a letter. A letter from PCC at the time.
No way.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you're one of our. It was before the specialist retailer crap that went on then. But yeah. Are you a retailer or are you a support? No, I said, well, no, we just call it the way we see it.
Yeah.
I mean, last week was great. The week before we pitched it over the balcony. The week before we couldn't smoke it because it was plugged. The week before was great. We
Yeah.
just call it, and that's how we build our brand and build our. Just call it the way it is. Yeah, but it's we really haven't really gone too far away from that. Although we haven't had a bad cigar for a while now, like a really awful cigar for a while now. But I don't want to have any more of those letters. But yeah, it's such an interesting. Now I was going to ask you a question. UK, you got some new laws being proposed
Yeah.
at the moment.
Yeah.
And from an outsider looking in, from the toughest regulation in the world in Australia, from an outsider looking in, it doesn't look pretty. It doesn't look pretty for outdoor smoking, for etc. There, where do you think it's going to end up?
No, it doesn't look great. And I mean, you guys, bloody hell. I mean, you live in one of the biggest nanny states, bloody possible, isn't
Yeah,
it? Which is
absolutely.
extraordinary to me, coming, knowing what I do about how you are as a people, and you can't imagine how that could be possible. But it just shows you once they're in, and it is a worry. With this new government is already, talking up a good game of taxing every last bloody thing they can think of, and yeah, this is like this was already sort of put forward by the Tories in a small way, and they've jumped on it. And it was the first thing he talked about when he was elected. I mean, all the bloody problems we have in this country, and the first thing he thinks about to tell people about is outdoor smoking. I mean, it's just madness. It's a lie, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. It's a lie. There's nothing, no scientific proof whatsoever that you could harm anyone by smoking outdoors. And if you find me a doctor who tells me there is, I'll show you a liar, because there isn't anything. But they like the idea of telling people what to do. I think they might have rode it back a little in recent times.
Good.
The feeling and the stuff I'm reading now, and the gist seems to be that might be a step too far in terms of pub gardens and things like that. They might just limit it to outside hospitals, outside schools, which is fine. You shouldn't be
Fine.
smoking outside those places anyway.
Parks, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we might dodge a bullet there. For how long, I don't know. Um, Thank God for the late great Simon Chase, as you mentioned, because he was the one that was really behind us getting that exemption in the sampling law, which is huge and has changed the way that London does business with cigars and has been able to do business with cigars. As you can come over, choose a great cigar, sit in comfort and enjoy it. And that is massive. And we try and keep quiet about that. And I know that the cigar people, trying not to. There was an article in the Mail or something a while back,
Yeah.
and somebody had got wind of it and said, look, all these fat cats are going smoking wherever they like indoors. Go and write about it. So they got this kid to go and write about it, and everyone was like, don't put us in the spotlight because they will go for you.
I think I was in Dortmund when that article came through, or just
Yeah,
before. Yeah, and
that's
no
right.
one was no one was happy with it whatsoever.
No,
No.
but thankfully it seems to have gone. There's been no repercussions. Yeah, it's very much about keeping your head down and see what comes. I mean, let's face it.
It's what I love about the US. They have such a well organized
Mm,
cigar community at an industry level, and they're not just well organized, they're well funded. And Rocky would
yeah,
tell 10 out of 10 for that, and what he's achieved. In terms of laws, the US is probably 30 years behind Europe in terms of
no, I
cigar law.
think I think you're right. I think the point is they've got money.
And they're prepared to fight
Yeah,
for everything, and
yeah,
they're prepared to fight at the FDA on everything.
yeah,
And whereas Australia, when the laws came through, and Sam Spur, and he was trying very hard back in the early 2000s to to get the cigar community around. We have this fantastic Crocodile Dundee, I suppose, opinion of us around the world. The reality is in Australia that if you told me to queue up, if I told 3 people to queue up on the door, me being myself, they'd all tell me go get fucked. But if a government tells you to queue up, they will go queue nicely.
yeah,
And we just don't have that inbuilt ability or natural reflex to fight when a
right.
government says something.
Yeah,
And it's what I do love about the US in terms of the cigar industry specifically. My God, they propose one thing, before you know it, you've got 10 senators and everyone's got bills, and you got amazing amount of money, and they're fighting tooth and nail, and they don't
yeah.
give up on it. And
No,
then if they lose, they appeal, and they go again, and they go again, and they go again. 10 out of 10 for you guys in the United States.
yeah,
Love
agreed.
it. Absolutely love it, because you got to fight for. I mean, this is one of the great hobbies, pastimes about. And you look at the aging rules, which is, I think, it's the one they're trying to bring into the UK as well. Yeah, and that they won't be able to sell a packet of cigarettes or any smoke or tobacco product for anyone over the age of 14 today.
That's it.
Um, you know, these are the things that people need to fight. And you were in Dortmund with me, and we saw. I mean, the cigar area was huge, but it was just infinitesimally small compared to the pouches, compared to the vapes,
Yeah,
compared to everything else.
yeah.
If they could just leave a little bit of our world to ourselves, it would be brilliant.
Well, and I don't, it makes you sound like an old fart, but I don't think
It
it's too much
does.
of a reach to say that, my grandparents fought for that freedom to choose. Once something is illegal, fine. If it's illegal, if you think it's illegal, make it illegal. That's the law. If it's not illegal, then you have the right to choose whether to use it, and to have a legal product and then tell you it's wrong and dangerous and bad, and actually we're going to ban you from using it, is so two-faced, it's untrue.
Nick, in this country, last year's tobacco sales just came out, and cigarette sales just came out. And there's been, because our tobacco taxes are $2,180 a kilo.
Wow.
So that is what's that? 1,300 pounds a kilo. Yeah, roughly that in tax. Now they're trumpeting the fact that cigarette sales are down 28% in a calendar year, and yet my mates are still smoke cigarettes. Instead of buying the $55 pack, the $60 pack of cigarettes, they just go to a local corner store and buy their $10 illegal imported cigarettes.
Cool.
And yet, when you pointed out to government that you're losing out on so much tax revenue,
Yeah.
and it's not the fact that people are stopping smoking cigarettes,
No.
the fact is you just lost that market. They say, no, it really is a matter that our anti-smoking laws are working, and they just look away. And what do you do?
Yeah.
And so that our tobacco taxes will go up another 10% this year, another 10% next year, and that market of legal cigarettes will drop again, just continue to drop away.
Yeah.
And you wonder at what point do they actually, there's a penny drop, that it needs to be fair regulation, fair taxation in terms of these products, but they don't. So, we are the worst in the world when it comes to tobacco. Well, they say the best in the world when it comes to tobacco laws. But what we're seeing right now is just a proliferation of just illegal tobacco, not cigars of all things. I would have thought that especially with plain packaging, I thought we would have seen an immense number of fake cigars coming to this country, etc. There, but because we tax on weight, no, it doesn't occur that way. It's just phenomenal. Anyway,
But it's like, again, at the risk of being accused of hyperbole, it's like George Orwell, isn't it? 1984. Like you say, at what point will they tell you 0 people in this country smoke, and then you walk onto the street and there'll be everybody lighting up?
Yeah, yeah.
No, don't believe what you see. Believe what we tell you.
It was like Sir Humphrey. The best performing hospital in the UK was the one that hadn't opened yet.
That's it.
It's beating everyone on figures. Yeah, we're exactly the same way. What's next for you? What's next for you in terms of books, writing, etc.? You can take a break.
It's amazing, and still learning how to deal with how much it takes out of you.
I thought you were
because in many in many respects, the writing of it is actually the easiest part. This time round, first book I did a hybrid deal with a traditional publisher, so they handled all the publishing. But of course, when the money comes in, they want half of that. And so I thought to myself, well, if this is going to be an ongoing thing, I really need to take it in hand. So I did it all myself this time. And I got a team. It's the same team in Costa Rica that put together the Ahoya de Nicaragua book. They put together my book this time. But then, of course, that's a whole new kettle of fish of things to learn and mistakes to make and pressures to put yourself under. And then you've got to arrange how you're going to get it out. And then you've got to promote it and market it and do signings and stuff. And it is a big thing for one person to do. It really is. And I do find that I sort of get it to launch and then feel like you want to sit in a darkened room for a month. But you can't. You have to get out there and press the flesh, which is lovely, by the way. I love meeting people who enjoy it, but it's all, full on work. Next is, I think, if this is received well, which early indications are it will be, that why not go again? Like I said earlier, I'll keep going as long as people want it. I've just finished writing a book for Nick Perdomo.
Really?
Yeah, his biography.
Wow.
Which will be fantastic. That will come out 2025. We're just going through the production now, of which I am doing that for him. So I'm doing the production for him and getting that book put together and designed and everything. And Nick, I mean, amazing story, an amazing business, not your average Joe. So that was quite an experience in itself. And when that comes out, I'll come back and tell you all about it, because that was quite something.
Cool.
And so in a way, I think it would be nice to be a sort of combination of my books and then ghostwriting or writing books for other people, which gives you a bit of more security and a bit more money up front, and still allows me to, have this journey where I go and meet these amazing people who are doing amazing things. And as you say, become friends. And next thing you know, you're breaking bread with them and their family. And that's the thing I love more than anything, really.
I've got one book in me. I got one book in me, but I can't do it yet, and I'll get you involved in it, Nick. But I want to
Definitely.
do. I'd love to get the story, the full story of Pirates of the Cigar Caribbean and the secondary trade, the books of the secondary trade, the history of the secondary trade of Habanos, and all the parallel importers and how it went the Manuel Garcia years, etc. There, Habanos B, all of that. I think that would be a remarkable story of the
Wow.
secondary trade in cigars and how it works and how it's worked and how it's transitioned and the players that got caught, the players there because it's mostly public, and putting that through. That would be an absolutely fascinating read.
Wow.
When you think that today, or no, well, it's not even today. I'm going back. My numbers are 10 years old now, but at the peak of that Habanos B operation, there was anywhere up where over 4 years, 70 million cigars were put through the parallel market. And if you haven't delved into that, look into that period of time.
Really?
And people went to jail, accountants from Habanos went to jail, etc. there through the whole period of time. And it is just a fascinating period of history. And the #1 cigar website in the world, which I shouldn't mention because I'll probably get sued, at that time, they folded after that whole thing collapsed, was selling, I think it was at one stage, 2,500 boxes a day.
No way.
Globally. Yeah, globally.
Out of Switzerland.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many fascinating stories in that parallel world of the cigar market.
Yeah, that would be a great book.
None of us can actually write that book until we actually exit the industry.
Exactly.
None of us can write that book. But wow,
that's like turkeys voting for Christmas, Rob.
That is the one. Yeah, I'm kicking that ball through the goalpost on the way out the door. Just an absolute cracker, and the characters that were involved, Nick, the characters and the risks that were taken and how they got caught, and all of that. It is just not only about distribution, commerce. It's about intrigue. It's about just the nuance of a little thing went wrong. One little thing went wrong, and the whole pack of cards came.
Is that right? Wow.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you the story offline.
Great story, mate. I'd love to hear it.
Superb story. But again, none of us can tell it until we're not involved in this industry. It's good, mate. Can I say thank you so much for spending the time with FOH tonight? I know our guys. I mean, we're coming up to Christmas, people. Coming up to Christmas. If you haven't got Nick's first book, you need to go get Nick's first book and his second book as a Christmas present to yourself. Get your wife, your daughter, your son, etc. Below is a link. Under this post is another link, so you can order it today and get it in time for Christmas. It's a fantastic read. Both books are fantastic, and you need to have them in your repertoire if you're a cigar lover. And even after you finished it as a cigar lover, pass it on to your wife, your partner, your brother, your son, etc. Whether they smoke cigars or not, they are such great reads. You need to get into it. Cheers, mate. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm very grateful, Rob. Thank you to you and to everyone there. I'd love to come and see you guys. So, Rob, we need to try and make that happen.
Let's do it. Take care, brother. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.